So hello and welcome to this video with the Novation SL MkIII. Now, I'm sure a lot of us have used Novation controllers and products before. For me, it started with a launch pad, and I used to love the little Nocturne that I used to take out when I was performing live sets with a laptop, kind of DJ style Ableton stuff, years ago when DivKid started. Used a few of their products since, and was invited by Novation, who sponsored this video, to check out the SL MkIII. So what is it? It's effectively 8 circuit style sequencers, polyphonic sequencers for MIDI, USB. There's a ton of connections on this. We've got CV, which is going to be the focus of my video, pitch and gate and mod ×2, and an analog clock. We've got 2 physical DIN MIDI outs as well, USB MIDI. So it's a sequencer, it's a keyboard, it's a controller, it syncs amazingly with Ableton Live, but I'm sure you're on my channel for the modular stuff. So let's use it with this stuff and enjoy it with some modular. So let's get into it. So to start with, let's build up a sequence, and this is what we're going to build up, or at least something similar together. I'm using the CV outputs to control the braids. There's some effects in the background, but the SL is in control. So here's what we're going to work towards from scratch. So I'm first going to clear the patterns. Nothing's going to play now. And to get this set up, we need to plug in our pitch, gate and mod outs around the back of the keyboard. Pitch is going to go into the volt per octave on braids, the trigger input from the gate, and I'm going to use the mod output to control the timbre modulation of this vowel mode in braids. So to start with, I want just a rhythmic pattern happening. So I'm going to go patterns, pattern 1, go into steps. I'm just going to punch in a quick pattern just on the note C. And that should give us just a nice static rhythm. So I'm going to use the mod wheel as the CV output, and here's where we set the CV output. We go into global, and we can see CV mod out 1 is CC1. If I hit record, I can then step program the mod wheel. We can record this live as well, and we'll do both. First, let's step record it. So I hold a step, and then just like I would pressing a note to set pitch, I just move the mod wheel. We can see it's going red as it's been automated and recorded in. So now when I hit play, that's step recorded the mod wheel. Now if I clear these, I can hit record and simply just move the parameter that I want to record as automation. So hit record, move the mod wheel, and there we have it. Now, I want a 4-bar pattern, so I go back to patterns, hit duplicate, the pattern that I want and where I want to move it to. So now that's on pattern 2. I'm going to duplicate for a 4th time. But this time I'm going to change some of the notes as well, and I'm going to step record. So back into steps. Hit record so I can record the mod wheel as well. So now when I hit play, I have my new pattern. And to chain these, we simply go patterns, press the ones we want to chain. Could be those two. I want to chain all 4. So here I have the SL MkIII controlling my modular patch. Here's a quick picture of the patch. Here's a quick picture of the outputs. I'm using the clocks and the gates to generate rhythms, pitch to modulate my kick, and I'm using the pitch sequencing and the modulation sequencing to affect other parameters in the patch. There's beats, granular sampling, and effects, all controlled by the SL on the 2 CV outputs and their 2 parts. Have a quick play around and then I'll run you through the patch. So this is feedback within my effects chain mapped to CV mod out 2. And the mod wheel on CV output 1 controls the position within this granular sampling and the loop that I'm using. So let me mute some sounds out on my mixer and take you through the parts. So at the top level, we have sessions, and I'm in session 2. We then come down to patterns. I've duplicated this up to 4 patterns, but let's just play the first part. The first part is the kick. The second part is my snare. So going into steps, we can see my kick and we can see the clap pattern. Muting everything out, here's the kick. And notice the LED showing us what notes are being played. If I hit stop, we can see on the red LED which notes are being played. And that pitch has been sent to the kick. I could play it. On the keyboard, but you can see which I've chosen on these red LEDs above the keys. The next part, I'm just going to mute this on my mixer, is simply the clock out. And going over to global, we can see the clock output PPQN, pulses per quarter note. Now for MIDI, this is often 24 PPQN on certain devices, but I just want 4 pulses per quarter note to give me this 16th note pattern. Going back into patterns, I'm going to chain my second part. And this is my clap pattern. Let's mix that in with the hats. So the kick on CV out's 1, clock playing my little shakery hi-hat, and part 2 playing my clap. Now the next part is a droning granular sample, and that's controlled by the mod wheel on part 1. No, this isn't set to the mod wheel on part 2. So this is playing the position within the granular sampler. And you can hear it's been sidechained as well. That's all set up in the modular. In fact, if I stop the SL, it'll stop that sidechain on the modular system. So for this patch, I've got a sequence set up. I'm going to hit play, let you listen to it. I'm going to play around with the mod wheel that's assigned to the CV modulation output, which is controlling the brightness and dampening and length of this modal synthesis using elements from mutable instruments. But the gate length is changing within this sequence, which we'll take a look at shortly, which is creating a much more complex tonal modulation as longer notes let the sound swell and breathe a bit more, and the short little plucky ones just kind of ping this delay and reverb. So let's have a listen, and then I'll show you how you modulate gate length and make this more complex sound. So I just have a single bar playing around here. I'm just going to hit play. Now hitting options, and we're in the step mode, we can see things like velocity, gate, and also get into pattern settings as well. We'll look at pattern settings in a minute. And you can see we've got these little signals under gate when the step is active. You can hit the arrows to go from steps 1 to 8 or down through 9 to 16. Now I'm going to make this step even longer. And you can hear some notes now last longer. They seem to swell and affect the effects chain with this patch that I've got set up a lot more. I could make it really percussive, really short. And let's make this step a lot longer. It's got kind of nothing after it, so it could be really long before we bump into step 1. It's just creating more complex movement. Notice the start of the sequence there seems to flutter because this is 7 steps long, so it's tying these gates together. Now they've just got their own gate. And if you think about any kind of real human played parts, we can't always keep the note on and off exactly the same length. So some slight variance here is very musical, or longer variance for kind of different funk rhythms, different breathing spaces between the active notes. It's very musical, and you should definitely play around with modulating and sequencing the gate length as well as just pitching gate on and off. Now hitting pattern, we can change the start and end point of the pattern. So now we're starting on the yellow note, The red notes now tell us that there were steps there, but they're not going to be played. And this is how we get different step lengths. In a future video, I'm going to look at polymetric patterns by layering up tracks of different track lengths with different start and end positions as well. We can also change the sync rate here. Down from 8th notes relative to the clock from what was 16th notes. In tempo, we get our tempo and our swing. We're going to the steps and the patterns. We can choose how fast this individual sequence on the one of 8 different parts. First 2 here are CV, that's all I've used so far. These could all have different step lengths and different clock rates running. Create very complex sequencing should you wish. I quite like hiding behind the SL. So that's it for the SL Mk III video. I've got some future videos that will be coming looking at things like polymetric sequencing, the arpeggiator, expanding this with a hex inverter mutant brain, which is a fantastic MIDI to CV module, and maybe some other videos too. Leave a comment, let me know what you think of this new kind of style of video, me being on camera, what you think of the product, the patches. There's some nice little musical interludes I think in the video. I've just had a lot of fun just making music with it. It's tied my studio together using a laptop, some Electron gear, and even sending MIDI out to things like my Big Sky pedal. It's been really cool. So there's more to come. Thanks for watching. Support me on Patreon, all the usual kind of jazz at the end. Cheers.